Hello and welcome to the Box Office Buddies podcast. I'm Daniel. I'm joined by Jonathan
What up?
and Common,
Howdy.
and we've got an interesting week ahead of us this weekend. So let's jump right in on number 10. At number 10 this weekend, we have The Invite in only 28 cinemas. It's up from 7 last week, and it is at 800K, up 111%. Domestically, it's at 1.37 million. This weekend, it had a per theatre average of 28,597. I think last weekend it had one of the bigger per theatre averages of the year. This isn't obviously as big, but it's in more theatres this time. So yeah, this is a good expansion.
Very curious to see how wide this is because it's getting rave reviews like pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, including mine. It's very good, very good, very funny.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Seems to be one of the bigger hits out of Sundance. We'll just see how this turns out. These limited numbers are very good.
It's likely making the top 10 next weekend. Let's say that much.
Just hanging on still to the top 10 at number 9 is Scary Movie, and it made 1.15 million. That is a drop of 63% for a domestic total of 106.27 million, international total of 104.4 million, for a nice worldwide total of 210.67 million. And that is on a $30 million budget, so it's now made 7 times the budget. What else can we even say about this at this point? Like, I think it's very interesting. The domestic and international split is almost even.
One thing I'm going to mention, because we would have to mention it for every single film that's basically dropped like this. 4th of July is on a Saturday this weekend, which means a lot of films have dropped a lot harder than they would have normally. There is a few examples that we'll go through. Well, there's one example that we'll go through even deeper because I've put a note about it. This weekend is like if Christmas Eve was a Saturday, basically. No one was going to the cinemas on Saturday, really, and it shows in the numbers. Next weekend, it's probably going to have a little bit of not a bump, but it's not going to drop as hard.
Although, well, I think what you mean to say is that, like, I feel the total amount of money that the theaters are going to take in across all movies will be higher.
When we're looking through at some of these drops, like 63%, it seems like it's, I mean, it is a big drop, obviously, but like July 4th fucked with everything this weekend.
All right, at number 8, we got Jackass Best in Last with 2.73 million. That's a 68% drop. The domestic total is 14.72 million, and the international total is 1.9 million, bringing the worldwide total to 16.62 million on a $10 million budget. This is not very good, especially for the standards of this franchise, because this is the lowest grossing by over 58 million worldwide.
That is just insanity. If I could speak this a little, since I unfortunately had to cancel my appearance on last week's episode due to some real life circumstances, I'm really disappointed in like how this is turning out, because fans obviously really like this, but they're clearly not turning out the way they did for even Jackass Forever. Like, to put Jackass Forever perspective, like, this was when movies were still getting delayed. Heck, it was delayed so it wouldn't compete with Dune. Back in 2021, it got pushed to February the following year, and that did, modestly well. Here, this isn't even going to crack 20 million. This is going to be the only Jackass movie that loses money, and I can't believe I'm saying a sentence like that.
I think they should have possibly like filmed a little bit more. Maybe made it a shorter movie, like maybe 75, 80 minutes. Released that as like a new movie, and then maybe had like a 5.5 where they looked back, like and make it that a kind of a clip show.
It's just hard to justify seeing something like this in theater if you're paying like full price, right? I mean, over $10 at this point, most theaters average, or even a matinee showing. Like, with that, you're paying to see half of stuff you've already seen from the other movies. And for most people, that I can't imagine that being appealing. I mean, it makes like I think it's still a pretty fun trip down memory lane, but like yeah, this makes sense. I mean, it also kind of makes sense why like the cinema score is so high compared to some of the other Jackass. I think only the true like the biggest fans showed up, and then like almost no one else.
All right, then at number 7 this weekend, we've got Backrooms with 3.31 million for the weekend, 25% down. 190.48 million domestic, 159.31 million international for a grand total worldwide haul of 349.79 worldwide, and that's all on a $10 million budget, of course. I didn't note this one, but this is another one where I was like, this is up 14% on Friday.
I believe there's a reason. Like, wasn't like the bonus footage released this weekend?
Yeah, that was this weekend. Yeah.
But did it show on Saturday and Sunday as well? Is my I love it. So it was up 14% on Friday, down 54% the next day, down 24% on Sunday. So like it just shows how big of an impact that is kind of having as well. On top of like it wasn't exactly like there was new footage, but like but yeah, this is doing amazing. It's nearly at 35x its budget.
At number 6, and this came as a shock to a lot of people between this and number 5, because I was fully convinced this would be the other way around. At number 6, finally leaving the top 5, is Obsession. This made 5.2 million this weekend, dropping 46%. Domestic total is now at 245.22 million. International is at 158.17 million for a worldwide total of 403.38 million. So it cracked the 400 million mark this past weekend. This was on a $750,000 budget, bought for $15 million. And that makes the multiplier for this 14.26. Holy cow.
This was going to be one of those occasions where the digital did kind of affect it more, you know? And even still, it's not that bad.
I'm going to wholly disagree with that. We've had this conversation so many times, really since the COVID days, of how much digital actually affects the theaters. And like when you're selling the movie at about the price of a movie ticket or more, like people have a choice. And the people who are buying on digital are probably the ones who weren't going to be seeing it in theaters regardless.
We got Double D. This is Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg movie. It's at 5.75 million this weekend. That's a 30% drop. 105.06 domestic, 111.25 million international, with a 216.31 million worldwide total. This is 115 million for the budget. Friday was only down 3%.
When I saw that Friday number, my jaw hit the floor. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little. I really did not think that would have held that well. That is insanity for a movie that's been out for weeks at this point and hadn't exactly had the best holds up until now. Of all the movies to have like a pretty like excellent drop with this weekend, all things considered, this one being that was not on my radar at all.
I don't really know why this happened fully. There's a few possibilities. It's just, I mean, definitely I feel like it was always going to stabilize a little bit more because it's got some mixed word of mouth, to say the least, but it's not like toxic. It's like more on the levels of like what Backrooms got in terms of word of mouth. Like, just some people just really don't like it. The vast majority do at least enjoy it. And I feel like finally we're starting to see a little less of the negative reception playing in. I don't know. I guess to me, this kind of strikes me as a movie I would want to watch on like 4th of July. Maybe it's because it's like aliens and I'm like thinking of like Independence Day or something. I don't know.
It does take place in America, so at least has something.
Obsession takes place in America,
But this one at least like has ties to things like the government. But Did that affect the box office on this weekend in particular? No. Again, I don't really have an explanation for why this one held.
I don't know. For some reason, people wanted to go see this weekend. It doesn't really make all that much sense to me, but I mean, okay.
Talking of good holds, at number 4, we have DC's Supergirl, and that had a 3-day weekend of 8.6 million, which was down, actually specifically 76.8%. Absolutely horrendous drop. And the good news doesn't end there. It's currently at 57.47 million domestically, 42 million internationally, for a 99.47 million worldwide haul. $170 million budget, by the way. They did try and cheekily put it above 100 million with the estimates, but that domestic that they had at 9.6 million humbled them quickly at 8.6 million with the actuals. For a little bit of comparison, Joker for Leodu, it's good when the Joker comparison comes out. 81.4 million drop, so it's better than that at least. That had a 7 million second weekend. The Marvels dropped 78.1%, 10.12 million for their second weekend. So this is less than that, but it's a better drop? Question mark. I mean, in terms of numbers, it is, but
I mean, for me, I think the Marvels is just like the best comparison, like analog to this movie, if that makes sense.
1997 Steel dropped 78% back in obviously 1997, and that did 192k in its second weekend. So that movie had it worse. And Morbius dropped 73.8%. So this is a worse drop than Morbius, and that did 10.2 million in its second weekend, just slightly more than the Marvels' second weekend. So yeah, this is completely fucking ass.
I don't think this would have been too much better if it weren't for the 4th of July, honestly. Slightly better, but like not much.
When I went out of this movie, because I saw it, back to back with Jackass opening weekend on Thursday, even I could tell like how low energy the crowd I was in watching that. I truly do believe like there's been so many discussions of like, oh, are people finally sick of cape shit? Or do they have like a lower tolerance for cape shit that isn't excellent? And considering, even if you take Supergirl out of the picture, you want to look at last year's Superman, where people thought that was a lock for $1 billion. Well, granted, it did outpace like every Marvel production that year. At the same time, like people want something like spectacular, but even when you do, there's clearly less people coming out to these unless they are a gigantic event. And Supergirl clearly is not that. The fact that it couldn't even break 40 million at its opening weekend was already a bad sign enough. The fact that Morbius had a better hold is just damning for like now I don't think DC and Warner Brothers should overreact to this, obviously, because there's clearly a lot more down the pipeline. But this is definitely not what needed to follow Superman in terms of like what audiences clearly want. I mean, I know they teased it at the end of Superman, but still, was not the correct way to follow it up.
By the way, this is a massive 400k ahead of Morbius's domestic total at the same point.
Oh, by the way, guys, if you want another comparison, do you want to know what movie dropped better than all of these other films? Madam Web. Like, Madam Web in its second weekend dropped 61.4%. I mean, granted, Madam Web did terrible to start. Still, the fact that its drop is better than all of these movies we just listed, and it's arguably the worst out of all of these, that's saying something. At number 3, we have the new Angel Studios production, and one that I definitely predicted would be, I don't want to say it necessarily a breakout, but something I knew would be kind of like a hit in its opening weekend with its timing. Young Washington. It opened at 19.37 million domestically, and that is over $1 million under estimates, if I may add. I think they estimated it was like 20.5 million or something. That is a per theater average of $7,109 in 2,725 theaters. And this is on a $20 million budget. Here's an interesting little tidbit. The audience breakdown, 51% female, so pretty even split between men and women. The race breakdown, Yeah, this is incredibly predictable. 76% Caucasian, 11% Latino/Hispanic, 4% Black, 3% Asian, and 47% of this movie's audience was over 55.
Yeah, big male movie.
I can't say I'm exactly surprised. Like, Angel Studios knows who their audience is, and to their credit, it clearly works. I've not seen the movie, but they clearly were playing their cards right with this one to get the money that they think it would.
Normally, movies tend to play in the coast a lot more as well. This played in Mountain, Midwest, South Central, and South America. 67% of the audience was from those regions. Also, the biggest cinema is normally either in Texas, California, or New York. The biggest cinema for Young Washington it made 111,000 through Saturday. It was the Megaplex 18 Thanksgiving Point in Utah. That's from the Deadline article. They were able to pick out what the the biggest cinema was, and 111K is massive. That's Friday, Saturday.
One of my bosses saw this movie and he was telling me that it was like a packed house. And then at the very end, everyone just like erupted in applause and just started chanting USA, USA, you.
Again, Angel Studios, like they know who their audience is.
Glaze me harder, please, bro. But yeah, Young Washington. That's can't wait until next year's AI fueled 1776. We've talked about this. Should have come out this year.
Number 2, we got TS5 at 30.32 million. That's a 57% drop. Domestic total is now 365.67 million. And the international total is 399.13 million, bringing us worldwide to about 764.8 million on a $275 million budget. Yes, we are still well ahead of Toy Story 4 at the same point, even though this movie has had some steeper drops. But obviously, we had the 4th of July kerfuffle, just destroying everything. I mean, it's to be expected. This is cruising past $1 billion.
It won't be next weekend, but it'll be the weekend after, I think.
I think it's definitely Odyssey weekend, yeah.
But it's very, very good. It had a very good opening in Japan. It did, I think, 14.6 million for like the Saturday, Sunday. Number 1 is Minions and the Monsters. This had a 37 million 3-day, 62.04 million 5-day. Internationally, it's 98.55 million. That is including its first weekend last weekend, when it made, I think, about 10 million. It definitely made 10 million in the 7 days, and then it made 85 million internationally this weekend. 160.6 million worldwide on an $85 million budget. So overall, that's not too bad. It's almost double its budget already. Now, when you get into some comparisons to other Despicable Me universe movies, that's when it kind of gets a little bit iffy. This is the worst opening for a Despicable Me franchise movie. The second worst is the original Despicable Me, 56.4 million. Granted, that didn't open on a Wednesday, but if we wanted to compare it to a Wednesday opening for a Despicable Me movie, you could look at Despicable Me 4, which came out 2 years ago. That did 75.01 million for the 3-day, 122 million for the 5-day. Or Despicable Me 2, which also opened on a Wednesday, which is earlier. That came in 2013. That did 84.23 million for the 3-day and 143.07 million for the 5-day. But if we wanted to compare it to Minions movies, the last Minions movie made 107.01 million. That's in the 3-day, I should say. And the first Minions movie's 3-day was 115.72 million. This is an incredibly big dip. 53% female, which I feel like makes sense. 37% Latino Hispanic, 35% Caucasian, 14% Asian, 7% Black, 55% under 25, which makes a lot of sense. 28% under 12, 22%, 25 to 34, which I think this is the first time that's been one of the bigger age demographics. I think normally 18 to 24 is bigger. That was 18% this time. Lots of numbers, just to say that this is an iffy start.
There's something very odd about the overall reception of this movie in general, where it's the people who are like, I feel like the people who are actually fans of these movies are going in and just kind of like, it's fine. They think it's all right. Like, but compared to the others, I think the others are pretty. It's got one of the lowest cinema scores. It may have the lowest cinema score.
So this and 3, Despicable Me 3, both have an A minus. Everything else has an A.
On the flip side, more than any of these movies, I've heard so many people who hate these movies say that they really like this one. I feel like it's not really playing to its audience, you know? Like,
Yeah, like, so I have not seen the movie. I have a friend who saw it, and he said, like, yeah, he caught this, he caught the wind of like, okay, a bunch of people who don't like these movies are seeing this, and they're actually appreciating stuff like, oh, there's a lot of good tributes to the golden age of Hollywood, but like, the Minions are not trying to appeal to these people. They're trying to appeal to children, like they have been ever since the first Despicable Me. The fact that this is doing as it is now, I'm not exactly going to be jumping the gun on its success quite yet because, as you said, 4th of July weekend on a Saturday. So let's see what happens next weekend. Um, However, I really do think this is a case where Toy Story 5 is really cutting into this. Like, Toy Story 5 is still putting up great numbers. It's having better word of mouth, generally speaking. No, it is. Why am I even saying generally speaking? It is having better word of mouth. And like Disney's not going to be just giving up screens for Minions. Compare this to, if you really want to make a good analog, let's go back 4 years ago after Lightyear underperformed, dropped like a rock the week after. And then the week after that was Minions The Rise of Gru, which, as we established, opened to 107 million. So Lightyear, I think, doing as bad as it did, gave that an opening. Compare it to now, where again, Toy Story 5 audiences are loving it by comparison. So it's just eating it up. We got a real battle of the Titans here.
One of the big things here is like Minions has the selling point that it's like the first Minions spin-off. Minions The Rise of Gru has a selling point that it's Gru and the Minions again, but like a prequel, you know. This doesn't have a really big unique selling point. It is just a separate group of minions. It is a movie about Hollywood, which audiences aren't exactly massive on movies about Hollywood anyway. It is different in that it's different for me in the fact that it's good, but but like spoilers for what I think of it. I think it does kind of alienate some of the people that do like the Minions movies because it's not what they want from a Minions movie. They want whatever the first 2 Minions movies are.
and I guess Despicable Me 4 also has that appeal of like, oh, the Minions have superpowers now. I guess they all had a hook this one just didn't have. Which weirdly to me, I thought this, like, for me personally, and admittingly, I'm not the target audience for Minions. I know, shocking, but the like this one had one of the stronger hooks for me. That's not saying anything. Yeah, it is really for a very specific group of people that I just don't think intersects with the Minions as much. At the same time, I do think this is probably going to hold pretty well. I think the reception is still very good to the point it's going to attract some people that wasn't normally going to get. Now, granted, it may also, take away from the other audience, but I think this is going to hold very well. It's obviously going to show up as the lowest grosser for all of these. At the same time, I feel like I honestly don't really think this is as much of a show of like franchise fatigue. There's other factors here. Like I feel like the second they do a Despicable Me 5, it's gonna do insane. And like also this was July 4th. I mean, it was kind of hurt by that. Yeah, I don't think this is really a franchise fatigue thing. I think this was them trying something that was a lot more niche and it didn't play as well as they hoped it would, but it'll play well enough to where it's still going to be a pretty big success, I think.
It could say that way more than Lightyear could say for itself in terms of like spin-off missteps. In both cases, both of those franchises make a crap ton in merchandising. They literally don't even need to make movies, and they'll make money off of this franchise for years to come.
Is my movie this week is Minions and Monsters. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
Maybe as a little before we begin, a little fun fact: all three of our picks this week are animated films.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it just randomly turned out like that. But
The Minions and Monsters is a whole separate group of minions, led by the evil Dick. I hate Dick so much. He's such a. They named him right.
Dick is the worst minion. He sucks.
So these minions are going from boss to boss. They stop off at like a big Cyclops giant guy. I thought he was pretty funny. Like, why did he make them into Lego bricks, bro?
It's solely for the dumb bit, and I respect it. I entirely respect it.
He didn't need to do all that. So they end up in Hollywood. James, which, get this, one of the minions has a character trait that isn't like something really stupid. Like he's a storyteller. He likes to tell stories. He draws a lot.
He's kind of ostracized for it.
He has one friend called Henry. Well, they'll call them roommates, but I don't think they were roommates. I think they were more than that.
He's got Ed as well. Ed's a friend too.
He has something like Ed is like a deaf minion. We're adding character traits to these minions. I'm like, these aren't just jokes. These are just like actual characters.
Characters. Like there's a reason to be attached to the characters. It's very strange. But it's very instantly noticeable. In like I want to say like the first 15 minutes, I noticed I was like, "Holy shit, I actually do care about these things." Like I feel bad for that minion, bro.
So James likes movies. He wants to make movies. Hijinks ensue. He has an idea for a movie called Minions and Monsters. So they need to go out and find monsters. I will say that the trailer is kind of like not. There's not much from the first half in the trailer. I feel.
The main premise they were selling was definitely the second half of the movie.
Which probably didn't help with like audience reception much.
Like there's other monsters at the start. Really, the title comes from the movie he wants to make. Like it's a strange, like it's a very odd meta commentary on the minions.
It almost makes you wonder if they went with that title because they thought like a title like The Minions Make a Movie would not have sold or something.
Yeah, they're looking for a monster as the Trey Parker Cthulhu says to be in your movie.
But yeah, so like talking about the cast, to be fair, I like Christoph Waltz. He was serviceable as the director guy. Alison Janney was, as much as I don't like narration, Alison Janney was fine as their narrator basically. Jesse Eisenberg, Dort. We love Dort. He's a good clanker.
My goat.
Is it kind of a spoiler to say? I mean, I can cut it out if. I mean, it's not that deep to be fair. Just George Lucas. This is just George Lucas in this.
Wait. Seriously, that's his voice role? He's just okay, that's hilarious because I read the headlines to this. I'm like, oh, what's he gonna play? He's like, he's just himself. That's so on brand for him.
It's not much of a spoiler because it literally happens in the first 5 minutes. Like
that is excellent. George Lucas, my goat.
And then the Zoe Deutsch is as Debbie, the suffragette.
Oh, Jeff Bridges as both studio executives as well.
The Minions becoming suffragettes, bro.
So yeah, the movie kind of splits into two subplots in the second half. And this was when I was worried that it was going to start to lose me, and I enjoyed it even more because you have some of the minions breaking off to find a new boss, and that's when they meet our goat Dort, played by Jesse Eisenberg. And he's just this. We're not going to say much about Dort. He's an odd guy. That's all we'll say. He's kind of a fucking loser. They follow him as he falls in love. And then the other plot is just the main, like, they're trying to find a monster for the movie.
Some of the references in Minions and Monsters: 1878's The Horse in Motion, 1902's A Trip to the Moon, 1903's The Great Train Robbery, 1923's Safety Last, Metropolis from 1927, King Kong from 1933, Citizen Kane is in there somewhere, Jaws 1975, of course. I think that's in the trailer. Like, I imagine it's just the shark.
I mean, a lot of those you're listing, they're either public domain or they're owned by Universal already, so it was easy for them to, do that, do all that stuff.
There's one incredibly bizarre recent film that they reference. There's like no child should be watching whatsoever.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe go on a limb and say it's something Jordan Peele made. Oh, okay, because I was trying to think like, okay, something Universal related.
It's actually not even a Universal movie. Should we just say it? Like, it's not a big spoiler. It's Babylon.
Wait, what? I actually might have to watch this movie now. You've convinced me. Like, Babylon acknowledged.
There's also apparently a reference to True Romance from 1993. But yeah, the references are kind of insane. They do like a whole montage of like silent films, but like with the minions in them, which was kind of funny. It is insane how they've actually just made a good Minions movie. I didn't expect this day to come, bro.
I would gladly rewatch this, like, on streaming, honestly. It is so pleasant, like, for no reason.
I actually might have to do that myself, considering I actually now have a Peacock subscription via my internet provider. Once that happens, I might have to add this to the list. Who knows? Maybe I'll watch all the other ones that I'm missing, even though I probably won't like them. I hated the first Minions.
Maybe it helps that like the director of this is like, I think he's the creator of the Minions.
He co-directed the first one as well. I think Despicable Me 2 also. But he is the voice, he is the creator of the Minions.
It feels like a movie that he's wanted to make for a while.
Yes. It's so disconnected from the others in almost every way. It's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of wrong to just call it Minions 3 because because literally Minions and Minions Rise of Gru, like Minions Rise of Gru specifically builds off the first movie. Is a direct follow-up. This takes place before most of the first Minions. It's like not even really a prequel because it's about an entirely separate group of minions.
I gave this movie an 8 out of 10.
I also did. This is one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. And I wasn't even thinking it looked bad. Honestly, I remember seeing the first trailer. I was like, I'm kind of digging this, weirdly. Like, I kind of want to see how this turns out. But I was not expecting to like it this much.
If you want to know how crazy this is, that both of us have given it an 8 out of 10, Dan Murrell, who hates the Minions, liked the movie.
Honestly, that kind of gives a good signal to me, considering, again, I hated the first Minions. I never watched the second one. I've only seen Despicable Me's 1 and 2, and I just kind of gave up after that. So, I'll take the recommendation. Maybe I won't see it immediately. I'll probably wait for streaming, but I'll give it a shot.
I would say it is the second best Illumination movie, just period. Like, it pretty easily. Because, I mean, honestly, I think I only have 4 Illumination movies rated positively. They all happen to be Despicable Me movies, but...
Yeah, so Jonathan, do you want to give us your movie?
Yeah, I didn't really have many options because literally I think I watched about like 5 movies this week. There was I forgot I did rewatch Obsession, but I mean, I'm not gonna. Y'all spent so much time reviewing Obsession. Yeah, Minions and Monsters, which you were doing, Dan. I watched 3 Pixar movies on the 4th, and then also The Raid, which I have nothing to say about it. So I guess Wally it is. You probably know what Wally's about, so I'm not going to get into that very deeply. I'm more so just gonna talk about my personal relationship with this one. This is my favorite Pixar movie. It's been for a while. It's always been one of my favorites, no matter what. In the last decade, it's become just my favorite. This is from Andrew Stanton, who did actually Toy Story 5. He just did Toy Story 5. He also did both of the Nemo movies. I think what I really like about this movie is how kind of experimental it is, especially for Pixar at that time, which I would say was consistently experimental, dealing with dealing with themes that are much darker than they appear on the surface. Like I also rewatched Finding Nemo the same day. That movie is dark as fuck. It is actually like existentially terrifying what that movie is about. That early age Pixar just consistently they were pushing boundaries with storytelling like this. And I think this film takes it to another level with just it's very, very bleak setting. Like it doesn't on paper sound like a pleasant movie to watch because it's really about like, hey, we're in trouble. Wally is ultimately like it's trying to piece together where we're heading with our rate of consumption. And it's just terrifying to even think about. But it balances this by also just being a celebration of what makes Earth so resilient and what makes the people who live on Earth so resilient. As cliche as it is, it really is like love. Like, love is the thing that pushes people forward to try to make a better future. And it's a it's a very timeless message. I think this movie has aged phenomenally. I mean, especially visually, I some of the scenes before the humans show up are some of them are like kind of close to photorealistic. It's very impressive what they were able to do with the Earth sequences. And it still looks great when they go on to the Axiom. It's just like, it that's when you're starting to realize, yeah, this is a Pixar movie. This looks like a Pixar movie. Starting to feel like it. Yeah, it's really got anything you would want from a movie, in my opinion, though. It's very emotional, very heartwarming. It's kind of sad. It's got a very little quiet sadness to it. Even by the end, it's very sweet, but also just kind of melancholy. I watched this. I have a criterion for this, which is just I can't believe they made a criterion for this.
It's the only Pixar movie with a Criterion, which is shocking to me, but I guess Disney.
It might be the only Disney movie, like period. Well, like in terms of like mainline Disney.
Yeah, but yeah, everything you said about that is true. Like the one thing I'll add for me, Wally taught me to be patient when it comes to movies because there's barely any dialogue in the first third of the film. And
I actually timed it. 40 minutes is when like the significant amount of dialogue actually starts.
yeah, like I think that's such a great way to ease in. Again, as a kid, it taught me to appreciate slower films and like a weird connection, but it's what made me love movies like Barry Lyndon, for instance, which, that's a very patient movie. It's 3 hours. It has a lot in those 3 hours, but it's also like it takes its time. Wally is only like 100 minutes. It takes its time, or however long it is. It shows you don't need to be flashy and comedic all the time. Or heck, if you want comedy, there's so much visual humor going on, or even just like with just like pantomiming, kind of akin to like I don't know. This is a weird comparison, the Lego video games, the early ones at least, that didn't have dialogue, where that comes from like a lot of pantomiming and just, it's that same principle.
And I was on about how sad it is, but I do think it's still very funny as well. Like I love slapstick humor. It's not overbearing. It doesn't undercut any of the more emotional moments in any form. It's very well timed. It's when it needs to happen, absolutely. There's not too much of it, not too little. I think it's still like, I mean, I really liked it as a kid too. Like I said, like I know some of my peers said, like I remember telling some people that it was my favorite Pixar movie. They're like, really? I think it's the one that just speaks to me personally the most.
So my movie, I was between two because I only watched two movies this past week because of a bunch of stuff going on. One that I've seen many, 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 many times that I'll get to in a second. I watched one that had been on my watch list for forever, and I thought this was a good time because of its name, the Tom Cruise film Born on the 4th of July. Now, I would have talked about this, but the only way I'm going to be able to talk about this is to get into the weeds of like the political climate surrounding like the time period of this film, and I'd rather spare people the details for this podcast to just keep this kind of fun. Instead, I watched something that I popped in on a whim because I happened to buy the PlayStation 2 video game adaptation of this film, and it's actually a pretty good game. The SpongeBob Squarepants movie. Um, Look, I was born around the time like SpongeBob first aired way back in '99. Yeah, I'm an unk, I know.
We all are.
I saw this movie. I actually didn't see the movie immediately, but I saw it like later in its run with my dad. And once again, even he liked it. This is one of those films where after it was released on home media, I just watch it over again because I just loved SpongeBob that much. And nowadays, I own it in my VHS collection. And I was very happy to find it because it's rare. Happy to pick it up at a Goodwill a couple years ago. A lot of people talk about like, okay, yeah, this is where SpongeBob as a franchise peaked. Some would say it was the beginning of a downfall because of what happened afterwards, but I digress. I'm not going to get into the weeds of, the quality of SpongeBob as a whole. That's a conversation for another day. With the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, I would argue this is far and away the most ambitious movie that Nickelodeon animation ever did. You could point to like, oh, what about Rugrats or I don't know, Wild Thornberries, which actually, feels grander than the show it is. Whereas the SpongeBob SquarePants movie feels right at home with how the show is paced, how its humor is portrayed, and everything about it just works. Like it has a super tight script. The the jokes are nonstop. It's insanely quotable. People still, quote it to this day, whether like be on social media, in real life. To a lot of people, this was like our, this was our Citizen Kane as kids, if that makes sense. It's something that we would hold up in high regard, something we consider to be very important. And I definitely think this is one of the more important movies of my childhood. To put this into context, around the same time, I had also seen The Incredibles and The Polar Express, which also had a big impact on me. But the SpongeBob movie was the one that stuck with me, even though I think, obviously, of those three, The Incredibles is the best of those three as a film. Something I really noticed on this watch of the SpongeBob movie is how pretty much every line or every joke in the film is memorable enough, not where it's annoying, but that you can mention literally any joke in this film, look it up on YouTube, and there will be people talking about it. Even for some of the more low key jokes, like ones that don't even involve like super visual humor or something. But that goes to show just how much of a titan SpongeBob was in like the early 2000s, just how smart the writers were. And something they really just weren't able to replicate even when Hillenburg was brought back to make the second film. I mean, I think the second film is a good movie in its own right. It's very different, but it lacks that same punch and impact that the original had. Some would say this was like the true peak of just Nickelodeon in general as like a brand. Like, this is it. We're never coming back from this. But of course, a year later is when we got Avatar The Last Airbender. So whenever that peak is up to you. But no, the SpongeBob movie, I've watched this so many times, and I'm pretty sure I've even memorized the script. And there's very, very few movies I can say that about. I can maybe say that about the Simpsons movie, another film that I watched ad nauseum when I was, 10 years old. I feel like, it's also one of those movies where I could pop it on at any time and I'm like, oh, I missed this part. I missed this part. I'm like, no, I'm fine starting it right here. And my hope is that no matter how long SpongeBob goes on, however much cultural impact it continues to have or whatever, it'll just continue to entertain children for years to come and also introduce them to David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll esteem the SpongeBob movie as a classic.
I think like if any Nickelodeon movie could get a criterion at some point, it should be this. I feel like its cultural impact is just unmistakable. Even in a busy year for animated movies that was 2004. Because think about it. You had not only that, you had The Incredibles and The Polar Express, as I mentioned. Shrek 2 was the same year. And like this was the year that like Disney was putting out, because there was like they put out Home on the Range that year. And this was like the turning point for Disney. Like we're getting outmatched by SpongeBob and Shrek and like all these other guys, or heck, Pixar, who they hadn't even fully owned at that point. You look at all of these movies, and like Disney really had to take a look in the mirror. And what do you know? Michael Eisner was out the next year. The SpongeBob movie is near and dear to my heart. And again, yeah, you guys have seen it too. There's not really much I can add to the conversation that is like, it's just like hilarious front to back. And for that, I give it an 8 out of 10.
Let's move on to our predictions.
The number one is obviously, it's obvious, but there's a lot of conversation about how much this is actually going to do. We have Moana, the live action Moana, and projections for this are aiming lower. For now, I'm going to go with 50 million, but don't be shocked if I like correct that to be lower before we lock in our predictions for the weekend. But I'm going to just start at 50 million. It's what my gut says. Then got Minions and Monsters with 28.5 million. We got to remember we got to account for the 5-day weekend. So we got to account for that sort of drop rather than the 3-day. So I'm thinking, yeah, 28.5 sounds good. Close behind it and could sneak into second place if the cards are played right. Evil Dead Burn, which I'm going with 27.8 million because the pre-sales are actually looking pretty good on it so far. Then Toy Story 5 with 24.5 million, which I feel comfortable putting this under the other two, considering it did come below what I had predicted it would come in last weekend. And then this is such a wild card because I really do think the invite could do it. But let's go with Young Washington at a lucky 7.77 million.
So I've got Moana at number 1, 47.85 million. Minions and Monsters at number 2, 27.75 million. At number 3, I've got Evil Dead Burn at 25. 4, I have Toy Story 5 at 24.86. And then at number 5, I've got Young Washington, 5.81, down a bit of a bigger drop of 70%. Just because like 4th of July is like probably a big factor in this weekend. But okay, Jonathan, what do you have?
Obviously, Moana number 1. I'm going 45.7 for Moana. We still haven't seen reception for this movie yet. I'm very curious to see how it's going to turn out. I can't imagine critical it's going to be good, but I want to see how the audience is feeling about it. Minions 28. I think 28's a solid number for it. Going a little lower on Evil Dead with 24. I still think that's pretty good. Toy Story 5, I'm going to go with 23 million. And you know what? For number 5, I'm actually going to go with the invite for 6.5 million. I don't know. I just have this gut feeling. I do want to wait to see like how many theaters it has before I lock this in. This is what I'm feeling like as of recording. So
So that is our show for the week. Some good predictions, I feel like they're hopefully better than our Thursday predictions this last weekend. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. I've been Dan. I've been joined by Jonathan
yep.
and Carmen.
Pleasure as always.
Goodbye.